Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. I just sat down here in person with my good friend Nate Scales, neighbor and mentor and skiing buddy and pilot friend for an awful long time. If you haven't heard the first show with Nate, he was back in the first 10 shows, I believe, over 10 years ago. It's great, hysterical, a lot of fun. He talks about his 2007 X-Alps campaign and throwing reserve on a really wild day here in Sun Valley many years ago on his ice peak, and has flown everything and has done everything. Has been flying comps for a long time, has kind of come in and out of the sport a couple times. He talks about that and why, but right now he's all fired up again. He was down with us in Valle this winter, had a blast. He and I are heading off to Chelan here in a couple weeks to compete in the Nationals. But Nate just did his first SIV after flying for 34 years. So I thought it'd be really fun to get him on the show to find out how it went, what he learned from it. Was it scary, not scary? What all happened there? He did it with Matt Henze up at Rife Lake in Washington, which is a beautiful place. And just talk about that whole process. Thought it'd be a fun kind of PSA to deliver to all of you, regardless of where you are in your journey. And if you have or haven't done SIV, or if you've done a ton of them. And so this was his first time stalling a glider after 34 years. And so we talk about is it even necessary? And what does it look like going forward? And how does it change your margin and risk and your approach? So enjoy this great talk. A good buddy of mine, always entertaining, Nate Scales. Hey, dude.
How's it going, Gav?
Good. We're doing this again. I think the last time I was in the other house, and it was circa 2014, maybe.
It was a long time ago. That'd be 10 years
10 years ago.
ago.
Holy hell, that's crazy. That's pretty funny. Those of you listening, this is Nate Scales, my neighbor and mentor, and someone I've done a lot of flying with over the years. And if you haven't heard the first one, go back and listen to that. He tells stories about the X-Alps and his feet coming off, and lots of entertaining stories about his family chasing him around in the Alps in the 2007, right? X-Alps. Yep. And flying here in Idaho and all that kind of thing. But why we're talking today is you just had some fun stuff on Rife Lake with Matt Henze. Did some SIV.
Yeah, for the first time in over 30 years of flying, I finally got the courage up to go to an SIV clinic. I did a bunch of research. I talked to a bunch of pilots, and everybody recommended Henze, and I felt like he was the person to teach me to do some stuff that I needed to learn.
You have kind of a man crush on Henze anyway, you said, right?
Yeah, I think it's fair for me to say that I think Henze has the best glider handling skills in the country.
He's pretty good at what he does. Why no? So yeah, tell the listeners a little bit of background on the flying you've done over the last 30 years.
So I think I started flying in 91, 92. That year, kind of at the beginning of paragliding, there wasn't much organized training. It was before USHPA was like I don't even remember what the name of it was anymore. They were just at that time phasing out the full stall to get your P2 rating. There was a P1 and a P2. They decided it was too dangerous and it seemed scary, and it seemed easy for me to avoid doing any of those maneuvers because everybody said I shouldn't. I really focused and spent my time learning to make a glider go up, and I didn't have any interest in going down. So I just sort of put it off, and then I hadn't done it, and it got scary, and I didn't want to do it, and I just, for a whole bunch of personal reasons, put it off for a long time, and then this winter, I started competing again a couple of years ago. I got an Alpina. That was fun and tranquil, and then they came out with the Photon, and that was fun and better, but I couldn't keep up with my friends.
And this is after years of flying two-liners. I mean, you've flown the hottest gliders there are for a long time.
I started flying two liners when they came out with the R10 in 2010,
Yeah,
and had R10, Ice Peaks, original Xenos.
gotcha.
Yeah, so I'd been flying two liners, but knock on wood, I never needed to full stall a glider, and I feel comfortable saying thousands of hours of airtime. It wasn't something that came up, so I hadn't used it. I had justified to myself that I didn't need it, but as I was getting to this winter, I ordered a Xeno 2, and I thought, man, now is the time as I'm getting back into this game, starting to relearn things. I should learn this skill, and like I said, I did a bunch of research. Everybody recommended Henze. I think that all of the maneuvers instructors in the US are probably really good, but I can personally say that Henze is great.
Let's get to that in just a sec. But just curiously, and I've asked other people this too. You've left this game a couple times, or maybe a few now. Why leave it? And what brings you back?
There's for sure risk in this game. I think quite a bit of risk in this game. And it's a beautiful game. And when you're in it and you want it, I think the risk is something totally acceptable. I'm willing to argue it's probably the coolest game, recreation anybody has ever devised, that we can take a glorified bed sheet and shoestrings and dance around the sky with our friends is absolutely an outrageous place for us to be in society. So when I can play the game, when I'm hungry for the game, I'm willing to accept the risk. But when things come up in life, I'm maybe on the tail end of raising two kids. They're 15 and 18. That was requiring a bunch of my time and bandwidth, and I had some work, and like anything in life, we go through cycles where we want to do this, we don't want to do that. Instead of chasing it and doing a bad job at it, it's easier for me to just sort of put it away for a while and not do a bad job at it, a mediocre job, a half-assed job. And then when I get hungry again, when the opportunity is there, it is so exciting and fun, and I am so looking forward to going to contests and racing with my friends and flying cross country here in Idaho. And my summer goal is to soar above the Continental Divide in the evening light, 100+ miles.
We haven't been out there in a while.
A long
People haven't
time.
gone. Last year, that crew went out there for the first time in quite a few years. I mean, the last time you and I flew out there was with Farmer when he landed on Bloody Dick Road.
Yep.
At least that was the last time for me. That was quite a while ago.
Me too.
That's crazy. When you have left it in the past, do you know you're coming back to it? Or at the time it's just, nah, I'm over it? Because you seem kind of over it when you're over it.
I've learned to say never.
Yeah.
I've learned to not say never. When it doesn't work, I just sort of put it away. When I get over it, I am over it. I'm completely manic and OCD, and when I'm not paragliding, I'm trying to ride my bike or ski every day, or I've just gone through this fire department adventure. I put a lot of energy into that.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I am over it, I'm over it. And when I get back into it, I'm so excited.
Yeah. There's a lot to be done still. I'm pretty excited too. Okay, so you go up to Washington. Was it a 2-day, 3-day? Take us through. What'd you learn? What was the sequence of events up there? What were you, I know you were working towards stall. That was the goal, but was there a lot of other stuff before, or what was the program?
Yeah, so I went to Rife Lake in Washington, which is beautiful. It's sandwiched between Rainier and Adams, and coming from the desert in Idaho, it is so green, and there's big trees and frogs and birds, and it's just a spectacular place. And I didn't know I think there was 6 of us in the clinic. I'd never met these guys before. I had a really good group. They were fun and excited. Most of them had been through a maneuvers clinic before, but they were relatively low airtime pilots. I don't think anybody had a P4.
Okay.
So, Henze started them at the very beginning, pulling collapses, doing pitch control, learning wingovers with big ears to deal with the energy of the glider. Because Henze and I have known each other for a long time. With me on my first tow, he towed me up. He said, all right, we're going to practice doing some spin appreciation. I got that cotton mouth feeling and my tummy went all funny and I almost said, no, let's not. But I swallowed the fear and we did some 90-degree spins. We did some 180-degree spins, and then we went straight into stalls.
Oh, wow.
And with Henze's progression and Henze in your ear, he did a really good job of explaining it and talking me through it. And you never the whole weekend did I get that feeling like somebody had kicked me over in a chair and I was falling off of a cliff.
Right.
And it was really good. So we started with learning to tail slide and stabilizing the glider in a stall, finding the sweet spot in there. And then we went to slightly more dynamic stalls. He wanted me to do a lot more dynamic stalls, but I was real happy taking my baby steps, doing 2-stage stalls, and then into like what I know of as acro stalls, where you stall the glider, reset it, and let it fly as quick as possible, maybe losing less than 100 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Then we worked into deep stall, which was really good to know how much you can slow that glider down before it does stall. And then if you're looking and listening, it gives you a ton of feedback, and there's a really good moment there to let it refly again.
Mm-hmm. Anything that caught you out? Anything that was scary other than the anticipation of doing what you knew you were going to do?
The anticipation was the worst. Towing is scary. I blew a launch and got drug into the water, so maybe that just caught me wet. That was unpleasant, but I think it provided some humor for everybody.
In retrospect, 30 years more, actually, if you started in 91, of not doing an SIV. You and I took you out over the lake in Annecy and tried to talk you into stalls, and as I remember, we didn't get that far. But in retrospect, do you wish you would have done something differently in the last 30 years? It's quite interesting because we have heard on a couple of the shows from people like Jockey that, yeah, it's really important, but it's not necessarily for everybody. You're proof of that. You flew for 34 years. You threw your reserve. That's on the first show. That's a really good story. We've all had incidents, but nothing major.
I think for sure, knowing what I know, it would have been good to do sooner. I think I wouldn't have been forever so terrified of this full stall situation that, knock on wood, never happened. But I was in a good headspace. Henze jokes in his clinics that we're really lucky to be there now because he's learned so much in his 7+ years of teaching SIV. So the course he put me through was really comfortable. Like you said, the scariest part was for sure the apprehension.
Mm-hmm.
Waking up in the morning and being like, oh my God! Going to bed on day one, when you're like, I survived, but I've got to do it again tomorrow.
Right.
And it wasn't until my last tow on the second day, we knew weather was coming in, so he gave us a bunch of tows on the second day, maybe more than you wanted, that it was actually fun to go up and stall the glider and try and be smooth.
Yeah.
So looking back, would I change anything? No. Am I really thankful and proud that I did it now? Yes, for sure.
And what does the future look like? There have these, Pal Tackets has this thing where you haven't done enough stalls until you've done 300 stalls. You got to do it a lot, So I think there's kind of this mismatch between I've done the SIV, I'm good. Now they're really, this is a tune up. You got to do it all the time. Are you excited about doing more? Do you think you should do more? Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I do. I think I should do more. I think thanks to your podcast, we know that even if we're not practicing the skill, visualization is a really good thing.
Mm.
In the car ride driving home, I probably did 500 two-stage stalls, steering with my knees and thinking it through. Every night as I go to bed, I think about it and work on it. I practice spin to stall, just doing the motions with my hands and feeling it. Maybe I'm continuing to kid myself, but I think that really helps a lot. I think I will try and save up the $1,500 to do it again with Henzi next summer or spring, as a tune up for the season. I really hope so. It was fun. It was fun to go and meet a new group of pilots, that's not your usual cross-country crew, competition crew. It's just this group of people that are pretty horny to fly and excited. You're all learning something together. You're watching each other learn. I think it's really good for us to learn everything and anything and everything that we can.
I had a really interesting conversation with the guy the last day of the PWC in Switzerland, who was a big fan of the show and had heard, he was relatively new. This was his first World Cup and was really jazzed up from Poland. But he took really seriously that he'd been an XC pilot, and he kept hearing that, comps you can learn the saying we all say all the time is you learn more in a week of comps than you do in a year of flying. And so I think the show has been a big pusher of going to a comp. They're fun, they're easy retrieve, everything's kind of handled for you, and you get to fly with a ton of people, so you get that instant feedback. And he was making the argument that he didn't feel that was totally correct for XC flying. He felt like there was more disconnect there than what we've talked about on the show. And you've done a lot of both, a lot of big XC flights over the decades. You chase that really hard. We're chasing it hard again. We're all excited about it this year, and also a lot of comps. And I found myself kind of agreeing with him in a sense that it doesn't necessarily. For example, I'll get to a question here, but for example, some pilots are really good at comp flying because they've got all those people and they're disciplined and they know how to gaggle fly and they understand the strategy, but they're not necessarily great at flying 300K by themselves. What do you think about that? Just in general, are we pushing the comp side too much, too little? What do you feel like?
I guess I sort of feel like you're learning one thing in the comp scene. You're learning the relative strength of your climbing. You're learning how many different variable lines there are. I'm constantly learning how important it is to search around for better climb, for a better gliding line. Are these the only parts of comp flying? No, not at all. Like you said, we have some people that are really good comp pilots. They are really good pilots, but they haven't yet chose to put the energy into flying cross country, and maybe they don't have some skills there that somebody like Belcourt, who is just to pick out the best cross country pilot, has. And I think that it's SIV relates into this as well. It's one thing that we can learn. It's not the whole picture. Now that I've done SIV, am I going to be a really good cross country pilot? Nope. But it's going to help my cross country flying. Going to a contest just because I go to some contests, and even if I do well, does that mean I'm going to be a good cross country pilot? Nope. But it is giving me more tools. Man, you can't argue that flying in any sort of contest, but especially a World Cup contest, teaches you how to fly full speed, which is something that we just don't practice that much on our own.
Yeah, I have found we've talked about that a lot over the years that, hey, when we get these days, we got to hammer it just like we do in contests. And I can never do that. I find it really hard to hammer that hard. I mean, one, it's pretty tiring. You know,
Oh,
if you're
mentally
hammering, it's
exhausting.
mentally exhausting, and if you're full bar between every climb, like you often are, especially in a World Cup, you just have to fly full speed all the time. I mean, not all the time, but most of the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty tiring. It's tiring on your legs. There's a lot of management going on
It's mentally
on a hot
exhausting.
glider. It's mentally exhausting, you know. And if we transition that into a 10-hour summer flight here in Idaho, and you know, that's pretty hard to do. But I also just can't. I just don't press as much bar.
And I don't think we should.
Yeah.
You know, a contest task is 2 to 4 hours. There's other people around who are helping with the search and things that when we're flying cross country. Baptiste Lambert did that XC Mag article, and he talked about how he's not flying full speed all day in a big cross country flight. He's flying really efficient.
Yeah.
But he, you know, or at least I heard him to say that he is not flying full speed all day.
Yeah.
He's, you know, using a lot more McCready. In a contest to win, you have to go full speed.
Yeah.
Because otherwise somebody else is, and they're going to get in front of you.
Right. What will this do, if anything? Have you thought about it when you're doing the visualization on the way home? Do you think it'll change your process? Do you think it'll change your approach? Do you think it'll change your margin?
I think what it will do is increase my confidence as I'm trying to core a small, tight thermal, you know, and I'm away from the ground. I know that I know what the spin point is. I know that there's a moment there if I'm looking and listening when I spin the glider to release it and get it flying again. I think I can turn tighter. The stall, I think to have the confidence if I do get a big cravat, I can quickly go to back fly, clear that cravat, and start flying again. I don't think it'll change my approach. I think it'll help my confidence, which should help me relax and fly better and be more aware of what's happening in the day.
Anything else you want to talk about?
No.
You're getting back into it? You're excited?
I'm really excited. I'm excited to go flying. I'm excited to meet new people. I'm really excited to just fly around with people this summer. Pretty lucky. It's absolutely insane that we're at this point in society where we can, for fun, dance around in the sky with our friends.
Well, I'm glad you did your first SIV in 34 years or something, and you got that tucked away. And yeah, man, let's go have some fun. Thanks, dude.
Yeah, thank you, Gab.
If you find the Cloud-Based Mayhem valuable, you can support it in a lot of different ways. You can give us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or however you get your podcast. That goes a long ways and helps spread the word. You can blog about it on your own website or share it on social media. You can talk about it on the way up to launch with your pilot friends. I know a lot of interesting conversations have happened that way. And of course, you can support us financially. This show does take a lot of time, a lot of editing, a lot of storage and music and all kinds of behind the scenes cost. So if you can support us financially, all we've ever asked for is $1 a show. And you can do that through a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can set up a subscription service that charges you for each show that comes out. We put a new show out every 2 weeks. So for example, if you did $1 a show and every 2 weeks, it'd be about $25 a year. So way cheaper than a magazine subscription. And it makes all of this possible. I do not want to fund this show with advertising or sponsors. We get asked about that pretty frequently, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, which I've said many times on the show, I don't want to do that. I don't like having that stuff at the front of the show. And I also want you to know that these are authentic conversations with real people, and these are just our opinions, but our opinions are not being skewed by sponsors or advertising dollars. I think that's a pretty toxic business model. So I hope you dig that. you can support us. If you go to cloudbasedmayhem.com, you can find the places to support. You can do it through patreon.com/cloudbasedmayhem. If you want a recurring subscription, you can also do that directly through the website. We've tried to make it really easy, and that will give you access to all the bonus material, little video casts that we do, and extra little nuggets that we find in conversations that don't make it into the main show, but we feel like you should hear. We don't put any of that behind a paywall. If you can't afford to support us, then just let me know and I'll set you up with an account. Of course, that'll be lifetime, and hopefully you're being in a position someday to be able to support us. But you'll find all that on the website. All of you who have supported us or even joined our newsletter or bought Cloud-Based Mayhem merchandise, t-shirts or hats or anything, you should be all set up. You should have an account, and you should be able to access all that bonus material now. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.